With the start of former President Trump's second impeachment trial just hours away, one of the 10 Republican members of Congress who voted to impeach has a powerful message for his GOP Senate colleagues. In the Washington Post, Representative Adam Kinzinger argues that a vote to convict is necessary, writing, quote, "It is a matter of accountability. If the GOP doesn't take a stand, the chaos of the past few months and the past 4 years could quickly return. The future of our party and our country depends on confronting what happened so it does not happen again." Joining me now is Congressman Kinzinger. Thanks so much for taking the time this morning.
You bet.
This is a stark message. It's a message of accountability. I wonder, if Trump is acquitted again, will Congress, in your view, in effect set a precedent that such behavior, not only encouraging the mob, but also making repeated attempts to overturn a free and fair election, that is somehow acceptable by a president?
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned that. That was one of my kind of points I wanted to make today was, first off, I do think the impeachment has an impact, whether he's convicted or not. And I think history has a way of judging things kind of perfectly. And I don't think people are going to look back in history and say impeaching him was the wrong thing. And so you think about when it comes to politics, everything is a precedent. So, we always had this kind of rule that governed presidents in terms of you're supposed to try to unite even in divisive times. You're supposed to, encourage people's better angels. And instead, what we've had for the last 4 years is a president that's focused on division, stoking the darkness in everybody's heart. And I fear what happens is there will be another president someday that sees that as a model and decides he or she is going to emulate that. And that's frightening.
You say that you've heard from thousands of constituents, Republicans, who have welcomed the stand that you've taken here. I wonder, have you heard from members of Congress who support your effort privately, but say that if I do this in public, I'll lose my seat?
Yeah, I have. I think lately they've been a little quieter because, they know that there's focus on, especially after the Liz Cheney secret ballot, 140 people voted to keep her rightly. But yes, I've heard that. Or people that would say they were, right on the bubble and because of process, they went a certain way. I get it. I don't blame anybody for their vote. I just know this. At the end of my life, I have to look in the mirror and say what I do with, especially my time in Congress, which is a real huge gift. And I want to know that I did everything to defend this Constitution, and I feel totally at peace with that.
Do you think you've changed anyone's minds in your party, sitting members of Congress? Because you got senators who are saying, the majority is saying their mind's already made up.
Yes, I think. I don't know about the Senate. I know in the House, being outspoken, it's tough. But I think it's given people a little courage. I think, when you look at ever going against the grain, whenever people stand up and present a competing vision, and I'm not doing it for me, but because really nobody else has. And I think it's made a difference. And it's beginning, I think, to wake people up. You can see it in the polling in the base. You can see it in, the polling across the country. And that's why I actually launched the whole Country First thing, movement with a one, countryfirst.com, is basically just telling people, look how far we've come in a bad way, but here we can go again, and it can be okay.
There are some in your party's leadership, Kevin McCarthy among them, who are refusing to confront the president. And in fact, Kevin McCarthy, he's confident that on this tack, Republicans will win back the House in 2022, charting the party's future as not just a populist kind of workers' party, but in effect consistent with the party of Trump. I wonder, do you believe he has the politics right?
Not really, no, I don't. Now, it's possible we could still win the majority on this track, because you never underestimate the Democrats' ability to self-destruct like we have the ability to self-destruct. But I don't think it's a long-term path to success. I think winning blue-collar voters, which we've been doing, and making gains in minority communities is great. The problem is the message has been feeding fear. It's been feeding division. If we can inspire people again and talk about how great this country is and how great it could be, can you imagine the innovation and that excitement we could unleash across everywhere with no regard for demographics or whether you live in the city or the rural town? And that is the winning thing for any party, but as a Republican, particularly for the Republican Party.
I just wonder, though, I mean, you have Republicans did well in the state legislatures in this election as well. We're going to be in a redistricting phase again. You got a lot of efforts to roll back measures that made it easier to vote because many Republicans calculate more votes is bad for them. I just wonder, given all those structural things, which you know create the districts, which further divide, right? You know, elect folks to Congress that have no political incentive to compromise. Given all that pressure, does this really change?
I think it can. And it's not going to change by just me. It's not going to change by a state legislature. It's going to change by everybody kind of waking up and demanding better. You know, Illinois is the opposite. We have a totally Democratic-controlled redistricting process. And what it creates is where the only people you have to care about if you want to get elected is your base. And they are not reflective. A typical base, Democrat or Republican, is not reflective of the country as a whole. So there's got to be some long-term changes. But I'll tell you, I really believe it's been a month since the insurrection. It feels like it's been a year. But I think people are waking up and kind of saying, like, this is not the country we want to live in. It's not going to be changed from a guy like me. It's going to be changed from the American people that demand better of the people they elect.
Final question, and I appreciate your optimism because I think folks listening now want to hear optimism. God knows there's enough negativity out there. But let's look at precedent if we can. Just all we have to do is look back a year. The president was impeached. He was acquitted. Folks said, he's learned a lesson. He didn't. I mean, you could see by his behavior he was emboldened. He got the message, I can do whatever I want, right, including attempting to overturn an election. If we are in 2 weeks where the conventional wisdom says we will be, with most Republicans saying they're not going to vote to acquit, where are we? You know, do we have an emboldened Trump wing of the party? Do we have an emboldened Proud Boys, the folks who stormed the Capitol?
I think maybe, because, I mean, only Donald Trump can be proud of being impeached twice and acquitted. Every other president, every other person in the presidency would be ashamed of that. So he'll, you know, stoke the base up. But I don't think it's a lasting proposition. I just think, I mean, you look at, you know, Sarah Palin, who was very important for a couple of years, and we don't talk about her anymore. I think he's going to go that way. If he doesn't, the Republican Party's in real trouble.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger, we appreciate your straight talk, as always.
You bet. See ya.
Jim, that was a great interview. I mean, it struck me to hear him say it's a privilege to be in Congress, to have that seat. I realize we almost never hear that from sitting members of Congress.
We don't. I mean, listen, and this is not a new phenomenon for either party on Capitol Hill, right? That political survival is usually the driving force, right? But every once in a while we see folks who are willing to take risks, right? Yep.
There you go. It was a great interview.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.
We'll all keep up the conversation. We'll be right back.